The world of Euphoria is a landscape painted in the harsh neon glow of addiction, desire, and the desperate search for self, and nowhere is this search more heartbreakingly illuminated than in the quiet, devastating moment of Cassie Howard staring into her bathroom mirror. This scene, far more than any of her dramatic outbursts or tearful pleas, serves as the quiet, unraveling core of her character, a masterful visual essay on dissociation and a fragmented identity. To understand this moment is to understand the entirety of Cassie's tragedy. A story not of simple vanity or boy craziness, but of a profound emptiness within, a self so shattered by external validation and internal neglect that it can only be glimpsed in pieces, reflected back in a splintered glass. The scene follows yet another emotional catastrophe, another moment where Cassie's choices have led her deeper into a web of her own making, and she retreats to the only place of privacy she has, the cold, tiled sanctuary of a bathroom. As she looks at her reflection, the performance for the outside world finally drops, and what is left is not a coherent person but a collection of parts, a series of Cassies that do not speak to one another. The camera work here is not just artistic, it is psychological. We do not see one whole Cassie. Instead, the frame is often split, or her reflection is fractured across multiple mirrored surfaces. We see her eyes in one fragment, her mouth in another, the curve of her cheek isolated from the rest of her face. This is the visual language of fragmentation, a direct translation of her inner experience onto the screen. Cassie is not integrated. The Cassie who craves love is disconnected from the Cassie who feels profound shame. The Cassie who performs sweetness for Nate is at war with the Cassie who remembers the betrayal of her best friend. These parts cannot communicate, so they exist in separate shards of glass, each holding a different emotion, a different version of the girl she is supposed to be. Her expression in these fragments is not one of clear sadness or anger, it is often blank, numb, a terrifying void. This is dissociation in its purest form. It is the mind's last-ditch effort to protect itself from overwhelming pain by simply checking out. By separating from the reality of the body and the consequences of its actions. She is looking at the reflection of a girl who has done terrible things, who is lost in a cycle of seeking love in the most destructive places, and rather than feel that tsunami of guilt, her psyche simply disconnects. The feeling is too big, so the self splinters. This fragmentation did not appear out of nowhere. It is the direct result of a lifetime of being told her value is conditional, based entirely on her ability to be seen as lovely, desirable, and agreeable. From a young age, her father's addiction and eventual abandonment taught her that love is unreliable and that the men in her life are volatile forces to be managed. Her mother, while loving, often projects her own romantic disappointments onto Cassie, inadvertently teaching her that a woman's narrative is defined by her relationship to men. The world around her, from school hallways to social media, reinforces this with a constant, deafening drumbeat: your worth is your beauty. Your desirability is your currency. Cassie internalizes this to her very core, but instead of building a stable identity upon it, she is left with only a hollow shell. There is no there. There is only a collection of reactions, of performances tailored to elicit the validation she needs to feel momentarily real. With McKay, she performs the role of the perfect, supportive girlfriend. With Nate, she performs a dangerous mix of seductive fantasy and submissive caretaker. Each relationship requires a different Cassie, and she becomes a method actor in her own life, losing track of who she is when the audience disappears. The mirror scene is that terrifying moment when the audience is gone. The curtain is down, and the actor is left alone in the dressing room with no script. The performances have become so constant, so all-consuming, that in the silence, she finds nothing behind them. The mirror, which should reflect a unified self, reflects only the exhausting effort of holding these fragments together. She pokes at her face, touches her skin, as if trying to confirm she is physically present, as if trying to feel real through sensation because the internal sense of self is so faint. It is a search for an anchor, a desperate attempt to locate a Cassie that exists when she is not being looked at by someone else. The tragedy is that she cannot find her. The love she seeks from men like Nate is not really love, it is a desperate attempt at existential glue, a hope that if someone else, especially someone as intensely focused as Nate, can see her as whole and desirable, then maybe the fragments will fuse together. Of course, this only worsens the fracture. Nate does not see Cassie at all. He sees a projection, a blank canvas for his own trauma and fantasies. In trying to become his perfect ideal, Cassie has to shatter herself further, silencing more and more of her own pieces to fit the mold he demands. The mirror, in these quiet moments, shows her the cost of that bargain. Furthermore, the scene is a poignant contrast to the hyper-sexualized, carefully curated way Cassie is often seen by the world and by the camera itself. Euphoria is famous for its stylized, almost worshipful depiction of its characters' bodies, but in the mirror scene, the gaze is stripped bare. This is not Cassie being looked at, this is Cassie looking. And what she sees is not an object of desire, but a subject in profound crisis. The clinical, cold light of the bathroom replaces the warm, dreamy glows of her intimate scenes. This is the unvarnished truth of her inner life, and it is devastating in its emptiness. It explains every chaotic, seemingly irrational choice she makes. Her whirlwind romances, her betrayal of Maddie, her obsessive need to be loved, these are not the actions of a confident femme fatale, but the frantic scramblings of someone trying to assemble a puzzle without the picture on the box. She is grabbing at any piece of external validation, any promise of love, hoping it will be the corner piece that brings the whole image into coherence. The mirror scene is the proof that none of it is working. The fragmentation remains. The dissociation is her only true refuge from the horror of that realization. In the end, Cassie's mirror scene is a quiet scream into the void of modern identity. It speaks to anyone who has ever felt they are only what others want them to be, who has performed a version of themselves to fit in, to be loved, to survive. It shows that without a core sense of self built on internal values and self-acceptance, we are all vulnerable to shattering. Cassie's tragedy is that she is a reflection in a house of broken mirrors, every piece showing a different, distorted version of the girl she might have been. But none showing her a way to become whole. The dissociation is not her failing, it is her psyche's survival mechanism in the face of an impossible demand to be a real person when she was only ever taught to be an image. As she stares, numb and fractured, we are not watching a silly girl crying over a boy, we are witnessing the profound human cost of growing up in a world that prizes the reflection over the soul, where identity becomes a fragile collection of fragments, forever seeking a glue that someone else holds. A glue that never really sticks, leaving you forever staring into the mirror, wondering which piece, if any, is really you.